Good afternoon, everybody. We're so glad to have you with us today. We have a wonderful audience for a wonderful conversation with Dr. Eran Magen. For those of you who are not familiar with us, my name is Charlene Margot, and I'm co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture. We have been bringing you the program, the Parent Education Series, now for 20 years. We're very proud of serving families, schools, and community members both here in Silicon Valley where we are, but across the nation and even increasingly around the world, 84 countries. So today's topic is how to be your child's favorite conversation partner. We figured that this was a great back to school topic. We all want to hear how our kids' days went. We want to know what they did in school, but mostly they come home and they say, or they roll their eyes. So this is what Eran is going to help us with today. We'd like to start by saying, if you would like to hear this event in Spanish, we have with us Luis Romero, zooming in from
I don't
Guatemala.
know how to do it.
And you can go to the interpretation globe at the bottom of your screen. So the Zoom icon's at the bottom, the globe, and then click on Spanish to hear this in Spanish. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Sequoia Healthcare District, Redwood City School District, Redwood City Together, and this organization, the Parent Venture. So today, Dr. Magen is going to be speaking to you for about 30 minutes on the topic of how to be your child's favorite conversation partner. But then we really want to open it up to you. This is a parent forum. That means it's an open discussion group. One thing that we do is we keep the cameras on for Dr. Magen's portion, what we call the pedagogy or the content, but then we turn the cameras off when it comes to the discussion, so you will have privacy if you need it. This is again, meeting format, so you'll be able to see the chat live now. My co-founder, Bev Hartman, will be putting resource links in the chat, so look for that. But that's the place where you can also talk to one another, comment on the program, and put your questions. It helps during the question period if you can keep your questions brief and as general as you can, but we will be reviewing those throughout the program. Also, again, I said today's event will be video recorded, available soon on our video library. Close to 300,000 views. It is a free library of our events on YouTube. We now have more than 400 of them, including many from Dr. Magen, so check that out. Bev will be putting that link in the chat. All right, also at the very end, a very short survey. We promise 4 questions. Click on that, give us some feedback. We love to hear from you, and we're always trying to get better. Let me tell you a little bit about today's featured presenter, Dr. Eran Magen. Earned his master's in education and PhD in psychology from Stanford University. He completed postdoctoral training in child psychology and population health and currently serves as an assistant clinical professor at the Yale School of Medicine Department of Psychiatry. He is the founder of parentingforhumans.com and divorcingdads.org, which support parents in creating collaborative and joyful relationships with their children. He's also the founder of Early Alert, which helps to prevent suicide among students and veterans. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. So again, welcome everybody. My name is Charlene Margot. I am co-founder of nonprofit The Parent Venture. We are honored and delighted to have with us today our friend, Dr. Eran Magen, to talk about how to be your child's favorite conversation partner. Take it away, Eran.
I am taking it away. Thank you very much. Nice to see many of you and to be spending time with all of you. As Charlene mentioned, this portion of the session is being recorded, but only I'm being recorded because only I'm making noise. You're not going to appear in any of the recordings unless you make noise. So let that be further inducement for you to keep the mute on. And then once I'm done talking and we switch to discussion, we'll stop recording altogether to make sure that things are private for you and more importantly for everybody's kids. Thank you for everybody that have their cameras on. If more people want to do that, by all means do that. It feels more like a community. And then also I don't feel like I'm speaking into a void and I can see when people are falling asleep and I know to accelerate. So this is all very nice. I'm going to jump in and share. I'm going to share this. Okay. I'll talk for the next I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so about how to be our kids' favorite conversation partner, because it's fun to talk with our kids. If people have questions or want to talk later on, you're welcome to email me. This is my email address. We'll put it in the chat as well. I'm happy to talk with whoever wants to or has any questions or suggestions or ideas. First and most importantly, good job. You're good parents. There's no question, there's no doubt in my mind that you're doing great. The very fact that you made some time to come and think about this topic means that you're putting in time and thought, which is not obvious. Parenting is not always easy to do in the middle of all of life that is happening. And so already you get full points. You know, you're starting from perfect, and you're probably going to stay there. Hopefully, this will give you some more tools to feel even better about your parenting and about your connection with your kids. But really, you're doing great. Don't worry. When thinking about interactions between any two people, really, but definitely parents and kids, I think about how much intensity is there. And just to help contextualize what I'm talking about today, if when there's not a lot of emotional intensity, this is a good time to be building relationships, right? And building goodwill in the relationships. When there's some emotional intensity, this is the time for us to be supportive of our child. And when there's a huge amount of emotional intensity, it's essentially a crisis, and we need to prioritize safety, sometimes at the cost of relationship, at least in the short term. Today, we're just in normal land. Everything's basically fine. Sometimes cats are coming into our faces while we're looking at a thing, sometimes not. But everything is normal, and we're just trying to deepen the connection with the kid that's in front of us. Big picture, the main thing to remember is the goal of the conversation is to connect with our kid, right? Really to be curious about what's going on with them. We're not there to immediately coach them or tell them what to do or whatever, just thinking about them as people that are interesting to us, and we're curious about them. Sometimes it's easier to adopt this mindset when we think about other people's kids or just friendly strangers that we talk to, right? We just want to learn. We just want to understand who they are. A big thing to keep in mind is that when the relationship we have with our kid is good, kind of in the big picture, everything becomes easier, which is why rather than prioritize any particular tactical thing, I'll always prioritize building a stronger relationship with my kid. And obviously, if we have a lot of trust between us, then my kid is more comfortable telling me about whatever's going on, right? And wants to share, and maybe wants my opinion even. And if not, then not. So I will get to some tactical suggestions, but I don't want us to forget that it all starts with the relationship. And a relationship is something that happens all the time. You can think about the strength of a relationship by measuring how much goodwill is in it, right? How much goodwill does your child have toward you? And how much goodwill does your child think that you have toward your child? And a quick kind of dipstick test for how much goodwill is in a relationship is that if there's a huge amount of goodwill in the relationship, and this is like fantasy level high, right? This is when your child spontaneously does things just to make you happy. Breakfast in bed, foot massage, the car is washed when you come back home, right? Like fantasy level, this is the upper, theoretical limit of how good it can be. Reasonable high levels, you ask your child for help, your child says sure, and kind of smilingly does it. You don't need to be nagging, you don't need to, right? And they're considerate of you. They clearly enjoy you and like you and want your company some of the time at least. And the tone is pleasant overall. Low goodwill is when your child may or may not do things that you request help with or cooperation with or directions that you give or whatnot. And when your child does, sometimes it requires repeated reminders, and sometimes your child's kind of grumbly doing it, and they definitely won't go out of their way to help. They just sort of want to be farther away, but still things are kind of okay. And if we really force things on our child that our child does not want, right? Use our power as grown-ups and as parents, we might run into the dreaded territory of overdraft, basically, when we have negative goodwill in the relationship. And that looks like the opposite of the theoretical, unreachable ideal, right? Where our child spontaneously goes out of his or her way to make us unhappy, right? Just sitting there scheming about how can I get back at mom or dad, right? Obviously, we don't want to be there. And so when I think, again, this is very big picture, just to kind of set the stage, when I think about what makes relationships strong or weak, I think about how much goodwill is in the relationship and how do we put in more goodwill and how do we take out as little as possible. So when there's a lot of goodwill in the relationship, all these good things happen, like I mentioned before, right? We trust each other, we're honest with each other and vulnerable. We'll put in effort when we ask each other to do things for one another. We'll forgive mistakes, all of these good things. To create more goodwill in the relationship, we just need to show that we care about the other person and or that we respect the other person, including boundaries that this other person set up. All the things that build relationship, as far as I can tell, kind of converge on one or both of these two aspects. And to withdraw goodwill from the relational account, we either show that we don't care about the child or that we don't respect the child, or we ask our kid to inconvenience him or herself on our behalf. The inconveniencing part is normal. That's part of every relationship, right? Pass the salt, pick up groceries, help with the thing, listen to me while I talk about my stuff, move over on the couch. Like these are all things that maybe we wouldn't do if the other person didn't exist, but we do as part of a relationship. It's fine. The demonstrations of not caring about somebody else or not respecting them and boundaries that they set, that's usually avoidable. And that's how we frequently withdraw too much goodwill from a relationship, more than necessary anyway. So the trick is to have this in mind and develop habits that just over the course of the day are a constant trickle of goodwill into the relationship through shows of care and respect. Basic things, right? Thank you, complimenting, making eye contact, making time for someone, remembering what they asked before and bringing it, being respectful when discussing whatever it is that can or cannot be done, consulting with them to show that we appreciate their opinion. We have a whole other session that we'll do later this week about, I think we call it Foundations of Goodwill. And it's focused on this, and it's like going into quite a bit of detail into how to build these kinds of relationship building habits. But this is, again, just very big picture, because if we want to have nice conversations with our kid, we should probably remember to have a good relationship with our kid in general. Right, I mentioned some of these before. These are all things that just things that are good to incorporate into your daily lives and make them habits of how you interact with your kid. Okay, as far as conversations go, here are some suggestions I have for how to encourage your child to share more about what's going on with them when you meet them. And like Charlene was saying, the sort of prototypical situation is when they come back from school or you pick them up from school and there's, how was school? Fine. And then that's like the end of the conversation. But this can happen in many other contexts too, right? They come out in the morning, their hair is doing this thing, they're looking for their cereal, and you're like sitting down next to them and you're trying to start a conversation. Okay, so number one, modeling, sharing, right? Telling them about how your day has been, which might feel a little weird, which can help us remember that it can feel a little weird for them too. Right? Especially if they're not looking for advice, they just want to share. So modeling, maybe when the whole family is sitting together, everybody shares something, but you model this kind of sharing that you want to be seeing from your kids. Maybe asking them what they think, how they interpret what you said. Why would this person do this? I'm not quite sure what's happening. Or, there's this situation that's happening. I went over and there was only one carton of soy milk left in the fridge at the supermarket, and I saw somebody else wanted it, and I wasn't quite sure what to do because we also need one. What would you have done in this situation, right? But modeling and sharing and asking for opinions and suggestions, and maybe even reporting back saying, oh, do you remember that one time when you told me that I should bring a gift to my colleague at work when she seemed sad? I did that. And you know what? She was so happy. That was such a great suggestion. But showing that you are inviting them to participate in the kind of dynamic that you want them to have with you as well. Modeling is a big deal with kids, as you know, but sometimes it's easy to forget because we think, well, kids should do this, it's from kids to adults, not from adults to kids. But the more we can model, the more they'll do it as well. Inviting kids to speak involves asking the kind of questions that they're more likely to answer. right? And the general focus here would be inviting them to talk about people and things that they actually care about, that they get enthusiastic about, because one of the characteristics of having emotion is that the emotion wants to be expressed, right? We smile, we sing, we frown, we stomp, we talk about things that are upsetting us, we talk about things that are happy for us. And so if you can identify the kinds of things that your kids have strong emotions about and ask about those things, they'll talk about them, right? And keep in mind that the goal, as I see it anyway, is to have a conversation, not to talk about a specific thing, right? But to talk about the important things and know that we're connecting about them. So this is a nice list to go through and ask yourself, how well can you fill this out? And if you cannot fill this out or can't fill out some of them, first of all, you're still a great parent. You've kept your perfect score from the beginning. Don't worry. Secondly, any of those are good things to talk to your kid about, because your kid will probably have things to say about them. But if you do know the answers, the names of your kids' friends, or an activity that your kid is super into, a club that your kid is really hoping to get into, or a thing that your child's really worried about happening in some group or in school or whatnot. Any of those things are things that your kid will probably be more likely to talk about when you raise them. As far as the types of questions to ask, people often talk about open-ended questions, which are a good idea, right? So we ideally don't ask questions that can be answered with a single word, like yes or no. More like what and how questions. I'll give you some examples in a second. But also not questions that require people to come up with extremes immediately, right? You ask your kid, what was the best moment of the day? And they're like, too much work. And they stop, right? As opposed to like, what were fun things that you did? Much more open, kind of more relaxed, right? So asking less for extreme things, unless your kid is into that, right? Which kid do you hate the most in your soccer group? Like that might elicit a response. But overall, right, starting at least from less extreme, and just give me an example of. So some ways to turn questions into questions that are more likely to give you a longer response is, instead of how was school, which maybe we'll get a grunt, or maybe we'll get fine or good or something like that, to ask about a specific thing you know is going on, right? What did you learn today at social science? Because we know that that was a class today. And then they have a clear answer they can give. And from there, a conversation can continue. Did you see Julian today? Yeah. How was it? It's fine, right? But if you know that your kid is, having this frenemy at volleyball, Julian, and Julian was going to come to the game today, then maybe you say, how did it go in the game today with Julian? Right? And then, I mean, you still might get a fine, of course, right? But at least now you're coming in with some context, and you're showing your child that you remember what this is all about, and your child is likely to give you an answer. Here are some things that I ask about when I pick up my kid from school. Um, I'll ask, which special did you have today? Right? They have, you know, uh, uh, what is it? PE, science, Spanish, library, and some other unforgettable special. So I'll ask, which special did you have? Because there's always a special, there's always an answer. And then I can say, oh, what do you do in that particular thing? And then usually he'll tell me and we can talk about it. How was your energy level today? We talk about this a lot. I think sleep is super important, because when I don't get enough sleep, the world becomes a very bad place inexplicably. And when I do sleep enough, the world is a wonderful place. And so we talk about this sometimes. And so I'm just curious, right? How's your battery? And he's like, oh, I started like a 60, but then there was a big dip. 40, I was really tired at some point. Oh, when was this? Can talk about it. How did it go with a particular friend that he mentioned before, being worried about or trying to figure out if that friend is unhappy with him, or if things are going like really well and like he's excited that they might be good friends later on. I'll ask about people. And sometimes I just won't ask anything about school when I pick him up. I'll ask about something I know that he cares about, because I like talking with him about stuff, right? So like, how would you change the script for this particular episode of a thing that we saw, right? Or if we're on our way to some class, I'll say like, oh, what are you planning to work on in this particular class you're going to today, right? It doesn't have to be about school. Okay. Once your kid is talking, this is our best opportunity to shut them down and stop them talking. And so we should do our best to not. So when they're talking, whatever they're talking about, we want to talk about, right? And so we stay on that. We don't swerve. Kids are really good at showing us what they don't want to talk about by not talking about it, right? They'll just change the subject, like no subtlety. That's usually an important cue. Now, if you think that this is an important thing to talk about, and maybe they're like having something really intense going on, like maybe you do want to dig into it. But if you're just trying to have a conversation and they're like not interested in this topic, and instead they start talking about something else, fine, let's talk about this other thing. And maybe through that they relax. And maybe then we go back to the thing, or maybe we don't, right? But we talk definitely at the beginning about whatever they want to talk about. And we don't have even to contribute a lot of content initially. If they're talking, it's usually enough to just paraphrase, right? Say back what they're saying to show that we're paying attention and understanding. And this is such a nice event in a kid's life that a grown-up is listening and paying attention without trying to change or tell them things, that they'll just keep talking, right? What special did you have today? Art. What did you do? We did volcanoes with the, soda and vinegar. Oh, what do you think about that? I thought it was really cool how when you put the vinegar in, it starts erupting. So you like the eruption part? Yeah, the eruption was awesome because then it's oh, but there was a big mess. Some of the kids are great. We're having a conversation. I'm saying basically nothing here, right? I'm not coming in and telling them about magma and tectonic plates. And like, they don't care. And I don't care either. I just want to talk with them, right? So avoid jumping into the coach role immediately or the teacher role immediately, or even, their moral guide immediately. Like, get the story out, whatever it is, long before you start intervening. Lastly, respecting their boundaries. So I'm hearkening back to the deposits and withdrawals that I talked about. If a kid says no, I don't want to talk about this right now, or if a kid shows us that he or she don't want to talk about this right now, we can really strengthen the relationship by accepting that. And we can really hurt the relationship by powering through it. Yeah. So if it's clear that your child is not interested, especially if your child says, I don't want to talk about it, or like, I don't know, it's not that interesting, say, okay, yeah, sounds like, okay, that's maybe not something for us to talk about. And maybe ask another question, or maybe not. Maybe you just kind of sit in silence for a little bit, or everybody does their own thing and you try again later on, because timing is important. Because I've known many adults who come back from work and really don't want to talk to anyone for a while, right? We just want to deflate for a little bit, and that's legitimate too. Yeah, right. And so one way to think about it is that every time you ask your kid a question or start a conversation, the way that your child responds influences the likelihood. Sorry, let me say that again. Every time that you start a conversation with your child, the way your child responds is probably the way your child will respond next time you start a conversation. And so you want to build this momentum of saying yes to your conversational bids rather than a momentum of no, right? So hitting again and again and again and saying, oh, how about this? How about this? How about this? When they're clearly not in the mood, now you're just kind of training them to shut down conversations. If it's not going, it's not going, great. Go, do your thing and then meet them again at dinner or whenever and try a better time and build a momentum of yes. Okay, to summarize quickly, things that are likely to help your child speak with you more and more in depth and more often is if you model sharing with your child. If you consult with your child about your own stuff that's going on in the way that you hope your child will consult with you and show that you respect your child's opinion. If you invite your child to speak by asking open-ended questions about things and people that your child cares about. If you accept whatever it is that they're saying and listen and stay in a listening role rather than trying to start engineering their life or coaching them or teaching them things. Just absorb, just let them talk. It's such a gift when someone is listening to us. Doesn't matter at any age. English has this beautiful expression to pay attention. And I think attention is really the only currency we have in life that is like truly biological and non-replenishable, right? To be awake in time is to pay attention. And so when you give someone your attention, it's such a gift, and everybody experiences that very viscerally. So just give your attention to your kid. And then if your kid is not wanting to talk right now, respect that. That's okay. There'll be another time. Patience is really important, right? Nobody comes home to a dog that says, "So what happened? Tell me more. What's going on?" Like, nobody will want that dog, right? You just want a dog who's there and happy to play with you when you're ready to play and looks clearly inviting. I get a lot of inspiration from dogs. I'm not saying anything about anybody in this meeting, but for me, that's a very inspiring stance. And I think one that we can adopt. Okay, that's all I have to say about this topic. I'm going to put in a quick plug for the rest of the work that I do. There are two websites I wanted to turn your attention to. One is parentingforhumans.com. And that has some recordings from this session, although there are many more on the YouTube channel for the parent venture. The other one is divorcingdads.org, which is specifically for dads going through divorce, because very often they end up getting disconnected from the kids and everybody's very unhappy in the process. And so it just has a bunch of resources for dads to stay more connected with kids, to co-parent more effectively, just kind of lower intensity and conflict, I think, to everyone's benefit. And you can join the mailing list on either of these websites to get blog posts, things that I write about and think about. There's a podcast where I interview parents about their experiences and then hear about future workshops that are happening, or join a bi-weekly parenting group where people just meet to talk about how things are going in parenting, just to have some time to sit and think about it instead of just have it come at us as we're living life. We'll put the links in the chat as well later on if you want.